Hello, welcome back to my garden. Today, as I'm filming this, it's June 20th, the first day of summer. So I thought it would be a good time to turn around and show you guys what's going on here in my vegetable garden. Come on in, let's take a look. So for those of you who are new to the channel or have just stumbled across this channel by accident, my vegetable garden is 40 feet across by 80 feet long. It's the first thing I built here in my garden overall. I figured this was going to be the keystone. And the reason I started with my vegetable garden was because I needed to fence it in. I have deer in the area. There's herds of anywhere from 4 to 8 to we've seen as many as 12 just meander down the street. Now this 4-foot fence won't necessarily keep them out, but there's so much around here for them to eat. If they don't have to jump it, they don't jump it. My vegetable garden is made up of two styles of gardening: raised bed gardening and an in-ground garden bed area. The reason I have the raised beds is because, well, this is future investment. I'm not a young chicken. In 10 years, I'll be 62. In 20 years, I'll be 72. 20 years can go by like that. I can't believe I'm actually 50, gonna be 52 this year. It's just amazing to me because it only seems like yesterday I was 30, and maybe just a few years before that I was riding my bike up and down my street, and here we are. Time flies when you're having fun. So the raised beds are actually a future investment. Now I do have an in-ground bed section, and that suits its purpose fine for now because I can still bend over and I'm still fairly flexible in many aspects. And there are things that do much better in ground or on the ground, such as large watermelon, pumpkins, sunflowers obviously, and yeah, I have to grow my sunflowers here in the vegetable garden because if I grew them outside the fenced area, the deer would eat them. So things like that, that's what the in-ground beds really are suited for. Long term, this is what I'm banking on, the raised metal beds. That's also why I have such high metal beds, so I don't have to bend over like that. All right, I've bored you enough, and many of you are repeat viewers to this channel, and again, I thank you very, very, very much. We're closing in on 1,000 subscribers. Thank you so much for that. Tell your friends, families, loved ones, grumpy old guy across the street about this channel. Okay, and this bed right here, this is my wife's bed right here. She likes cherry tomatoes, so I have some cherry tomatoes growing in here. She asked me to grow a plant called mullein, and apparently you can use the leaves in some sort of cough suppressant thing, maybe a tea, I'm not 100% sure. But she asked me to grow it, so I have it growing in the back corner here. She also likes Mexican sour gherkin, but I've always had problems growing it. It is growing or trying to grow right now, but we'll see what happens. Then we have some, I believe this is cinnamon basil growing here. Over in this bed here is my new attempt at growing sweet potatoes this year. I have 12 plants squished into this bed. Last year they all grew. The problem was they were very long and stringy. So this year I'm going to try to grow bigger, better, fatter sweet potatoes. That's the goal. That's the hope. That's the dream. In this bed, longtime viewers may remember that I started growing gladiolus in here. Now I collected a ton of gladiolus seeds last year from my gladiolus out in the flower garden, and I just sowed them in here, and I sowed them pretty densely because I didn't know it would germinate. They're not going to do anything this year. Next year they'll be a little bigger and a little better, and theoretically at the end of next year the corms should be large enough at which point I could then plant them out in my regular garden, or I could sell them or give them away to friends and family. I could do something with them at that point because the corms should be big enough. Over here are peanuts. These guys are doing incredible. I had a little bit of a screw up when I first initially planted them. I was planting some of them still in their shells. I don't know anything about planting peanuts. I learned very quickly. I fixed some of my mistakes, and as you can see, they are just thriving. They are just going bonkers. Now, I've never grown peanuts in a raised bed. I didn't even research to see if anybody could or should or would or have grown peanuts in a raised bed, but here they are. They're growing. They're looking good. Right here in front is a nursery bed, and I was supposed to be growing all sorts of seeds. Well, I planted all sorts of seeds and nothing really came up other than the sunflowers in the back here. The goal of the premise was that I would grow seeds throughout the summer and then in the fall plant those plants on out into the garden someplace. Or pot them up and put them into the greenhouse for safekeeping so they can then be planted out next spring. Either or. None of my seeds germinated, which was really weird, and it might have something to do with the The heat that we've had and the dry conditions. It's been super duper dry. Haven't had rain in about a month. Maybe we'll get rain on Monday. Don't know yet. It's a weird weather system that's going over us. Hopefully this dry spell breaks and we start getting more rain. Over here, turmeric. Never grown turmeric before. It just seemed like one of those fun things to do. I was able to get some turmeric root for fairly cheap. I don't remember what I paid for it, maybe $5 for a bunch of roots. Again, I just wanted to see if I could actually grow it, what it would do inside a raised bed. And it seems to be growing and thriving and continuing to put up new leaves, which is fantastic. And in my front bed over here, I have my herbs. I have some of that leftover cinnamon basil still in pots. It really needs to go into the ground someplace, which I probably will, hopefully in the next week or so, get it into the ground. But I also have oregano in here, thyme, parsley, and sage. Let's look at the beds behind you. All right, in this bed here, I have my green beans. These are Blue Lake 47s from Burpee. They are starting to produce. Sophie and I ate a bunch of them earlier this morning. They were absolutely fabulous, and I'm sure over the next couple of weeks, I'm gonna be eating tons of them. 9 times out of 10, they don't make it into the house because I just eat my fill out here. Just pluck them off the plant and pop them in my mouth. Great little snack. This bed right here will be going bye-bye shortly. I want to get this taken up very soon. I have another raised bed in the garage that still needs to be built, so I'll be building that, popping that into its place. My goal, or my plan for this year, is just to fill the bed with garden waste and garden debris and let it start rotting down. Twigs, branches, logs, grass clippings, etc., etc., etc. will all go into this bed. And then next spring, I'll hopefully be using the bed to plant something. Who knows? This bed right here, I have onions. I have red rock onions, hybrid yellow candy onions. They're doing well. They're doing very well. So despite the heat and the drought-like conditions, I've been keeping the bed watered and they're growing wonderfully. As you can see behind them, I have marigolds. I planted them there just to attract pollinators and to look pretty kind of thing. Just see a whole bed of onions is meh. In this bed, I have my second batch of green beans. They're still very small. They're growing quite well. Some critters nibble on the leaves at night, but as long as they don't eat too much of the plant and I can keep these guys watered, they will be growing wonderfully. Behind me are my cucumbers and other assorted plants. Growing up this trellis on either side is green apple cucumber. Now, a few years back when I first started growing cucumbers down here in eastern North Carolina, I was growing green finger cucumber. Green finger is almost a seedless cucumber, which is very nice. What we found with the heat was that the cucumbers would start to get bitter after a short period of time in the heat, especially once we hit July. July, August, it's just brutal down here with the heat. Average temperatures could be in the mid to high 90s. Slap the humidity on top of that, you're looking at 105 to 110. Absolutely brutal. Green apple cucumber doesn't care. It doesn't care, apparently. Like many cucumbers, it grows like a weed, and it puts out these small apple-shaped cucumbers, which my wife says are like perfect just for grabbing off the vine and eating as a snack, especially in the later evening when the garden is in mostly shade or full shade. She can bring Sophie out here, let Sophie run around, do her Sophie things, and she can sit there and munch on a green apple cucumber. So these guys are doing wonderful climbing up this trellis, but on the outside of each of these beds, I have other stuff growing. Right up front, I do have some more of the bush lake beans. Right here, I have a tomato, which name eludes me right now. I'm not sure which type of tomato this is. I believe it is a homestead tomato, I think. I had a label for it. Apparently the label's gone. A couple more beans, marigold, and as you can see, again, cucumber, every once in a while it starts reaching out, trying to grab something, and I have to just trim it back just to keep it growing up and not outwards. Otherwise, it would grow out and spill over the bed. Let me show you what's on the other side. Right up front over here, I have Baker Creek seeds, free seeds I got from Baker Creek, Japanese wasabi radish, I believe. They're growing, but they're weird, and it's just the heat, so I'm going to try them again. I only planted a few, but I'm going to try them again in the fall when the temperature gets cooler and I can normally grow a radish down here. Right here in front of me, I have a beefsteak tomato. This was given to me through my wife from someone at her work, and I hope that it will grow and thrive here. Because I have it growing on this side of the cucumbers, It will not get a lot of heavy afternoon sun, late afternoon sun. So my hope is that this guy will be producing probably in July lots of wonderful tomatoes, and it won't get too scorched by the sun because there'll be a wall of cucumbers here giving it some shade for that late afternoon. Let me show you the last two beds. These are the last two beds in the row. In this one, I had garlic, which I've just recently harvested. It's in the greenhouse drying out, and hopefully I'll be keeping some of that for myself and giving a bunch of it away to family and friends. But I'm thinking about topping this bed off and filling it with peanuts, putting more peanuts in here, because it seems to be doing so well in the other bed down there, and Easy Crop nothing seems to be eating it right now. So I'm thinking maybe instead of letting this bed sit stagnant for the rest of the year, plant some peanuts into it. If I plant them now, I think they take about 120 days. So that should be, let's say we're almost at the end of June here. So let's say July, August, September, October, November. You guys let me know what you think in the comments below. In front of me here is Sugar Baby watermelon. These are small watermelons. They get the size of about a volleyball. And right now I have 3 plants. I had 4. I decided to edit one out. And now I'm gonna see what happens with these other 3. I'm gonna end up only with 2. So I'm gonna take the 2 strongest ones, and they will fill up this whole bed with their vines, and they'll produce lovely watermelons. And then we can keep one and then give one away to friends, family, that kind of thing. Last year, I think out of a bed like this, I got 4 or 5, maybe 6. No, it wasn't 6. It was 4 or 5. It was 4 or 5, probably closer to 4. Either way, I got some watermelons. Again, they're small size, so it works out perfectly for like me and my wife. We can eat one, and again, if any extras, we'd give away to friends, families, and that kind of jazz. Let me show you the in-ground side. Now, for the new subscribers or people just stumbling across, my in-ground beds are 14 feet deep by about 38 feet long. Back row, my comfrey, I had cut it back all the way down to the ground, basically. Decimating these plants, but as you can see, they've regrown. They're doing well. What did I do with all those comfrey leaves? I have them sitting in a bucket right now, rotting down, making comfrey tea, if you want to call it that. I call it a sludge, but nonetheless, it'll be used as a fertilizer, and I'm actually going to start using it probably soon for many of my potted plants. Over here, I have daylilies. I have 2 different varieties, Russian Rhapsody and Golden Ginkgo. I used to have these daylilies elsewhere in my garden, but daylilies are like cracked deer. They can't help themselves. They will gnaw the thing right down to the ground, eat every bit, and not leave a scrap behind. So to try to better protect the plants that I had, I brought them here into the vegetable garden behind the fence. Again, if they really wanted to, they could jump the fence and get to them, but so far, so good. They're okay. Here in the back of the row I'm standing behind, I have more peanuts. This is an experiment to see if the peanuts in ground do any better or as good as the ones in the raised bed. In front of them, I have a couple of cotton plants. Why? Because it's fun to grow something different. My wife said, well, why can't we grow some of our own cotton? It's just fun to have. And I said, why not? In front of them, I have various peppers. They're doing well. And then a couple of marigolds, again, attract pollinators, makes everything look pretty. Over in this row right here, I have spaghetti squash. I have this group right here, a couple of zinnias, and then this group back over here. My goal or my hope, or I'm going to try to grow them up trellises this year. The next row over, I have lemon squash. Now the lemon squash is doing incredibly well. I didn't think it was going to do so well, and I have these tomato cages. So the theory is, my theory is that I'm going to try to get the lemon squash to grow up the tomato cage. I don't know how well that's going to work out for me, but like I said, I had these tomato cages, and if they grow really vigorously, maybe I'll add something onto the top, or I'll do something with bamboo. I don't know yet, but I didn't think that they'd be growing as well as they're growing. In front of this row here, I have more gladiolus in a pot as part of an experiment. I want to see how they grow and do and thrive. And next to that, I have a mandevilla, I believe it's called, or mandeville. Got it at Walmart for $5, and I had this empty spot here in the flower garden. So I thought, why not? It brings a little color, a little whimsy to the garden itself, and it's something nice to look at. Right here, this trellis was used last year to try to grow, well actually I did grow, moonflower up on my deck. And a deer will eat moonflower, so that's why I was doing it up on the deck. I had it growing out of pots. It was a whole thing. It kind of worked successfully. It didn't actually give me the effect I wanted. And I had this bamboo trellis, which is still in pretty good shape here. And I'm going to try to grow couple of different types of, I have pumpkin, and then I have cornucopia gourd mix. It's those fancy little gourds that you get when you're at the garden center, when you're doing your pumpkin shopping, that they charge outrageous amounts of money for this funny, warted, ugly looking gourd thing. I said, why not try to grow my own? So I have Jack B. Little pumpkins, and I have the cornucopia mix, and hopefully I can train them to grow up this trellis, and hopefully this trellis is going to be strong enough to handle that, as long as we don't get any big crazy winds. Let me show you the next spot. I don't know if you guys can see it, but right up front here I have hibiscus. Again, I had that out in the yard. The deer were eating the hibiscus, so I wound up digging it up, what I thought was a dead plant, putting it into a pot. It's doing pretty well. I have all throughout the borders of this in-ground area bagged potatoes. The reason they're bagged and not in the ground or not in a raised bed is because of fire ants. So I have to grow them into something that the fire ants won't necessarily get into and or bother getting into. So the bags seem to be working out pretty well for me in that regard right now. I have, like I said, lots of them. I'm not going to go over every single bag, but they're growing, they're doing well, and I'll probably start harvesting in the next couple of weeks, honestly, because many of these plants are starting to go over, which means it's time to harvest. Right here in front of me, cucumbers. I've never grown cucumbers in ground before, nor in a trellis system. So this will be the first year that I'm going to try this. It's an experiment for me. Right here next to me are my pumpkins. This is Howden pumpkin, sort of, let's say, medium variety pumpkin. It gets fairly sizable, but not massive like Connecticut field pumpkin or some of the other varieties out there. I have two plants because they will grow and spread. If you've grown pumpkin, you know this, and they will invade other spaces. So that's why there's a lot of empty space around them right now, and we'll see how they fare and thrive throughout the year. And behind me here, I think you guys can see this on camera here, I have some of my sunflowers. I have little baby sunflowers at the end that I planted a couple of weeks ago. I have bigger ones right over here. I have these right here. And then next to me, I have some of my oldest sunflowers that I planted out, and they'll probably go to flower in the next couple of weeks, which will be pretty exciting. I can't remember which variety that is, Mammoth or Kong. All right, in the last couple of rows here, I have some zinnia growing here. Again, looks pretty, fills up the space, and they thrive in the heat. Next to me here is something I've never done before, is tomatoes and basil in ground. Now, I've always grown my tomatoes and basil in a raised bed, either a low raised bed or a taller raised bed for the basils, but I've never done anything in ground. This year, I'm doing them in ground, and I'm getting mixed results. The basil seems to be growing and thriving. I have 4 tomato plants here. The one closest to you guys, it's doing the worst. What I believe has happened is that there's still glyphosate, weed killer, in the ground. The weed killer comes from farms. A farmer will grow a field of hay, and they'll use the weed killer to suppress the weeds. Well, that hay then gets fed to cows. The glyphosate, again, from my understanding, do not harm the cows, but it passes right through the cows into the cow manure. Eventually, that cow manure is collected for compost. And when you go to the store, you buy your compost, it's compost with cow manure or cow manure added, that kind of thing. So those weed killers, those glyphosates, are still in the manure. And my understanding, again, and if you've heard differently, you think I'm wrong, please leave those comments below. Educate me or anybody else who's watching this channel. They take about 3 years to break down. So whereas they no longer harm more sensitive plants like tomatoes. And so what'll happen with tomatoes, it'll start looking like it's dried up, withering, the leaves curl, the growth is stunted. The growth is actually stunted on all these plants. Now, this plant here is doing arguably the best out of all of them. It's putting on fruit, it's produced leaves, it's putting on fruit, and what I've done is I've covered the fruit in an organza bag. It's a little mesh bag, and I'm hopeful that that will keep the sap-sucking insects off of it. I have stink bugs down here. I have leaf-legged bugs. Both of them take their little proboscis and they stick them into the skin of the tomato and they start drinking. And they're only affecting a little portion of the tomato, but over time that winds up becoming infected and winds up rotting. And I've never been able to successfully grow tomatoes down here in eastern North Carolina due to the insect pressure. This one is putting on fruit. So we will see what happens long term. I am playing with these plants. How do they grow? How tall do they get? I'm experimenting. I'm having fun. As you can see here, I have a wall of sunflower because I said I was going to grow a lot of sunflower this year, and I meant it. I don't know what variety this is, but it's doing very well. I see lots of heads on here that are getting ready to pop open. So hopefully these will be opening up just as soon as the ones behind me in the next couple of weeks, and we'll be getting a really nice show of sunflowers. One last spot to show you. So as you can see over here, I have my bench full of various shrub cuttings, and many of them are doing quite well. I've already planted out quite a few. I have quite a few more to be planting out in the near future. That's right, I'm going to be planting when it's 90 degrees out. But as long as the plants get lots of water, they should do well. On my bench, I have various other cuttings, other things that I'm really not going to show off because there's nothing really to show off. It's not that exciting. But up front here, I have a couple of different things going on, hostas and some other seedlings. These are sort of leftovers. These are add-ons. These are things that they weren't part of the original program of spring planting. So it's safe to say that a majority of all my spring planting, 99% of it is all done. All of the stuff that I grew from seed, the various flowers and all that good stuff has all been planted out. If you're new to the channel and you want to catch up on as to some of the stuff I did plant out, there's a variety of videos. If you go back, I planted irises and sunflowers and all sorts of other stuff. And there'll be future summer tours with the flower garden as well, just to show you how certain things are progressing and doing. So that'll be coming up. Some of you guys may have noticed Sophie walking around in the background of the video. And if you're still watching this, awesome, thank you. And if you'd be so kind, just to let me know if you're still watching this video, say Sophie down below in the comments. Sophie's quite hot. She's really not enjoying the, yeah, I know you're not enjoying the heat, neither am I. Thankfully, it's getting a little cloudy now, which is good. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to the channel, click that bell icon to be notified when I do post new videos. This way you don't miss anything that's going on here in the garden, whether I'm planting out a new hedge, which will be coming up soon, or if I'm building a bench for the garden, or just doing another tour somewhere else here in the garden, or planting up something else interesting. Please check out all the links below, and Sophie and I are going to catch you on the next one. Bye-bye. Come on, Sophie. Let's go inside and get some air conditioning.